Welcome back to Rand on Real Estate. I'm Greg Rand, your host on 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. Our number is 800-848-9222, and we've been talking about home ownership as a great thing, and real estate investment is a great way to defend yourself in a world gone mad and use it as a financial planning tool. But I've got somebody calling in who wants to take me to task on some of that. How about Daniel from Manhattan? How are you, Daniel?
Hi, how's it going?
It's going good, thank you.
I guess my only point was, and I've only been listening for a little bit, so excuse me if I'm coming in the middle of the program too harshly, but I think there's 2 points I wanted to make to you. One is, I've heard it said, you had a saying about buying a condo. I've heard it said that a house is a wooden box that sits out in the rain. And by that I mean, obviously, all the costs involved and everything else that's involved in homeownership. And the second point I wanted to make to you was, you either rent a house or you rent money to live in a house. Home ownership, the really only benefit you get of it is after the 20 or 30 years after you completely paid off your mortgage. So kind of pushing real estate as an investment, I think, is somewhat misleading. Okay, I'm glad you called.
Take it point by point here. First of all, when you talk about the wooden box sitting out in the rain and the maintenance, I hear that a lot from people who refute the idea of owning a home. Let me just say that somebody is going to pay for those repairs, okay? And it's not going to be the landlord. And maybe the landlord that actually writes the check to the roofer to fix the roof, but it's the tenant who pays the landlord's bills ultimately in the rent. So it may not feel the same because you're paying it in your rent, but it isn't like you're getting a free ride out there. And what I'll say, you said it yourself in a very important thing, and that is that the financial benefit you get, we didn't mention the tax benefits, the tax deduction of paying a mortgage. I don't want to even talk about that right now. But yes, 10 or 20 years later, you get the benefit. Exactly. Okay? Nothing I'm saying, Daniel, is supposed to be get rich quick. But if after 20 years, 20 years, I'm in my 40s now, okay? And I'm amazed at how fast these years fly by. You buy a house that you can afford, you make the payment, similar payment that you might have made renting a similar place, maybe even a little bit more, but you're getting a tax deduction and you own it. And so there's a certain pride, there's a certain love that you have for the property. But even putting all that aside, you blink your eyes and 10 years goes by, buddy. And you blink your eyes again and 10 more goes by. And if you've been renting all that time, let me tell you, you're going to be ticked off because over 20 years, there's never been a 10-year period since the Great Depression where real estate did not go up. That always goes up over 10 years. This will be no different. The last 10 years, real estate went up. It went up a lot, came down a little, or went up a whole lot, came down a medium amount, but we still ended up significantly higher than we started the decade. And it's going to happen again this way. So don't get yourself caught into too many of those intellectual arguments about how dollar for dollar it's equivalent, because it isn't, for the reason that you stated. 20 years goes by and boom, now you've got a few $100,000 more than you would have had otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And again, I'm not saying real estate is a bad thing to buy. I don't think people should not buy a house. But I think from a purely economic standpoint, the rent versus buy argument is something that each person should make and look at the financials. And from my perspective, I can rent far cheaper than it would cost me to buy an equivalent house in my area.
Okay.
Far cheaper. And and then I don't have to have the additional burden of the taxes and everything else that comes with home ownership. So when things get cheaper, I'll eventually buy a house.
Well, that's good. So you do it when it's right for you. I'm really not pushing home ownership. I'm pushing back against people who misunderstand home ownership and misunderstand the expectations of what it should be. I hope that you do wind up doing it when the time is right, and you'll feel the thing that I only touched on describing a few moments ago. When you have the pride in ownership, you'll understand that intangible part of owning your little piece of dirt. And this idea, I named my company Own America because I believe that owning a piece of this country is a really, really powerful emotional root that you put down in your community, but you just don't know it until you actually experience it. Mm-hmm. So thank you for calling, Daniel.